Welcome to Night Shift Neurons. I'm Dr. Maya Ellison.
And I'm Dr. Rafael Cortez. Hey, Maya.
Tonight, we're diving into a topic that feels intimate and a little uncanny. What the brain gets up to while we sleep.
Intriguing and a touch eerie. Just how you like it, Maya.
Guilty. But serious too. We'll take this in 3 acts. Dreams and the brain's nightly cleaning, the terrifying experience of sleep paralysis, and what an all-nighter actually does to your brain.
Sound like a plan. Ready to peel back some latives?
Ready? Let's begin with the first big mystery. Are dreams random noise or part of organized nighttime housekeeping?
Okay, first off, quick primer. Sleep isn't one uniform state. It's a choreography of stages, NREM and REM, cycling roughly every 90 minutes.
Right. NREM includes N1, that drifting, half-awake zone, N2, which is roughly 40 to 60% of the night with spindles and K-complexes on EEG, and N3, slow-wave deep sleep, the hardest to wake from.
And then REM, brain activity looks more wake-like. Vivid, story-like dreams pop up, and the body is paralyzed. REM atonia. The first half of the night tends to be N3 heavy. The second half, REM heavy.
That pattern matters. Different kinds of processing, memory consolidation, emotional recalibration, and even physical cleanup map onto different stages.
So when someone asks, why do we dream? There isn't a single tidy answer.
Exactly. Let's talk competing theories. First, activation synthesis, which is sort of the classic scientific knock against meaning in dreams.
Developed by Hobson and McCarley in the late 70s. The core idea, the brainstem, especially pons circuits during REM, fires spontaneous signals up to the cortex. The cortex, always a meaning maker, stitches that random noise into a narrative, a dream.
In plain English, the brain makes a movie out of static. Dreams in that model are byproducts, not functional messages. They reflect which circuits happen to get tickled.
There's evidence for that. REM is full of internally generated activity. Damage to brainstem regions knocks out REM and dream content can be bizarre and fragmented, consistent with noise being interpreted.
But the activation synthesis model has limits. It doesn't explain why dreams often connect with our waking concerns, why nightmares replay trauma, or why dreams skew toward emotional and social themes.
Modern takes frame dreams as tied to memory consolidation, emotional regulation, threat simulation, and even creativity. So maybe dreams are a byproduct of useful processes, or maybe they're instrumental.
Let's unpack memory consolidation. There's solid evidence that sleep, both NREM and REM, improves learning and memory. Animals show replay of neural patterns, hippocampal place cells firing in the same order during sleep as during awake navigation.
That replay suggests the brain is rehearsing and integrating experiences. People who sleep after learning generally retain and generalize better than those who stay awake.
And then REM seems to be especially important for emotional memories. The amygdala and limbic areas are active in REM, but the stress chemistry, particularly noradrenaline, is low. So you can replay emotional content in a low-stress chemical environment.
Which might be how sleep helps take the emotional edge off painful memories. Studies show after REM-rich sleep, people often show reduced reactivity to previously disturbing stimuli compared to being awake.
That's powerful. The brain rehearses emotional material with the volume turned down. Hence the phrase overnight therapy, sometimes thrown around.
And then there's threat simulation theory. Dreams as practice for survival scenarios. Chases, falls, social conflict show up a lot in dream content.
Not proven, but it fits a lot of recurring dream themes. And then the creative angle. People like Kekulé famously attributed chemical insights to dreams. Experiments show sleep can foster remote associations and insight.
So dreams could be a cognitive theater where replay, reorganization, and remote association all mingle. But there's another big piece, often framed as a separate, more physical function, the glymphatic system, the brain's nightly plumbing.
Yes, the glymphatic system is one of my favorite brain metaphors because it's both slightly creepy and reassuring. The brain literally flushes itself with cerebrospinal fluid to wash out metabolic waste.
Discovered and fleshed out over the last decade by groups like Maiken Niedergaard's, the glymphatic pathway moves CSF along perivascular spaces, mixes with interstitial fluid, and clears metabolites like amyloid beta and tau.
Key players include astrocytes and aquaporin 4 channels, those astrocyte end feet lining blood vessels that let fluid move. The system acts like a lymphatic network for the brain, hence glymphatic.
Animal studies are striking. During sleep, the interstitial space expands from about 13–15% to roughly 22–24%, allowing much more fluid flow and clearance.
And blocking noradrenaline, which is high during wakefulness and low in sleep, increases that interstitial space and glymphatic flow. So neurochemistry gates washing.
Human work is catching up. MRI tracer studies show reduced clearance after sleep deprivation, with tracer lingering in limbic and cortical regions, hippocampus, prefrontal cortex, amygdala.
That matters because impaired clearance is tied to higher amyloid and tau, which are linked to Alzheimer's and neurodegeneration. So chronic poor sleep seems to raise long-term risk.
An important nuance, sleep likely serves many functions: memory, emotion, immune regulation, metabolism, and glymphatic clearance is a major contributor, not the whole story.
Exactly. Also, human measurement techniques are still maturing. Some clearance routes might be less sensitive to one night of lost sleep. But overall, the idea that sleep helps clean the brain is solid and rapidly evolving.
So here's the intriguing question. Are dreams themselves part of the cleaning? Do the subjective movies relate to the plumbing?
Short answer, we don't have proof that dream content affects glymphatic flow, but there are fascinating ways they might be linked.
For one, processes can run in parallel. Glymphatic flow is a physical fluid dynamic process, while dreaming is cognitive theater. They both happen during sleep and could be coordinated by slow waves and infraslow oscillations.
Right. Another idea. Memory consolidation and synaptic pruning produce metabolic byproducts. Strengthening some synapses and weakening others could produce biochemical waste that needs flushing. So the brain's story editing and washing could be two sides of the same coin.
And studies show infraslow oscillations, vascular pulses, and CSF flow are tightly coupled during sleep. It's possible that particularly vivid dream recall lines up with phases of this coupled activity.
No smoking gun yet, but the working model is elegant. Sleep is an organized maintenance window where replay, emotional recalibration, and physical clearance all proceed, and dreams are the subjective experience emerging from that complex machinery.
So dreams may not be pure random noise, nor strictly the cleaning program. They're semi-random stories arising from highly organized processes.
That's Act 1 in a nutshell. Any last microscopic details you want to add, Raphael?
Just this. Think of your brain like a house. Dreams are the rearranged furniture and the stories you tell about the house. Glymphatic flow is the plumbers taking out the trash and flushing the drains.
Nice. Moving on. Act 2. Sleep paralysis, where the brain's choreography goes visibly wrong and the experience feels supernatural.
This is one of those phenomena that instantly convinces you our brains are powerful meaning makers. Sleep paralysis is a state where you're awake, but your body remains trapped in REM atonia.
Definition time. Sleep paralysis is a temporary inability to move or speak while falling asleep or waking up, hypnagogic or hypnopompic. Episodes usually last seconds to a couple minutes and can be terrifying.
often accompanied by vivid hallucinations, a sensed presence, an intruder, pressure on the chest, the so-called incubus, even floating or out-of-body sensations. You're conscious and aware, but you can't move.
It's more common than people think. About 7 to 8% of the general population report at least one lifetime episode. Rates are higher in narcolepsy and among people with irregular sleep schedules, jet lag, shift work, or PTSD and high stress.
Mechanistically, during REM, the pons sends inhibitory signals down the spinal cord to hyperpolarize motor neurons. That's REM atonia, evolution's clever way of preventing us from acting out our dreams.
When timing goes off, when the cortex wakes up before the body's atonia has lifted, you get sleep paralysis. Awake mind, paralyzed body. Sometimes with REM dream imagery leaking into waking perception.
That mismatch explains the hallucinations. You have vestibular and respiratory sensations colored by REM imagery. The amygdala is active, fear circuits are on, and breathing can feel labored, so the brain fills in a threat narrative.
Hence, demons, malevolent presences, or even alien abduction themes, depending on cultural background.
Exactly. Cultural overlay is powerful. Worldwide folklore, the old hag in Newfoundland, kanashibari in Japan, pandafece in parts of Italy, all map on to the same underlying neurobiology.
Exactly. Cultural overlay is powerful. Worldwide folklore, the old hag in Newfoundland, kanashibari in Japan, pandafece in parts of Italy, all map onto the same underlying neurobiology. In modern contexts, some alien abduction reports look suspiciously like sleep paralysis. Waking in bed, paralyzed, sensed beings. The experience is real and terrifying, but the interpretation depends on culture and story.
Why is it so terrifying biologically? For one, fear circuits are ramped up. Second, when you can't move, vulnerability spikes. Third, your breathing perception can be distorted during REM, producing sensations of pressure or suffocation.
Triggers include sleep deprivation and irregular sleep, jet lag, sleeping on the back, stress or trauma, and narcolepsy. One key idea: instability in boundaries between REM and wake states.
So, what to do when it happens? First, psychoeducation. Knowing what it is reduces panic dramatically. That knowledge alone often defangs the episode for many people.
Behaviorally, stabilize your sleep schedule. Avoid chronic deprivation and erratic bedtimes. Skip heavy late-night caffeine and alcohol, and consider changing sleep position from supine to side sleeping if episodes cluster.
In the moment, people report focusing on moving a small body part like a toe or finger to break the episode. Calm breathing and mentally reminding yourself that it will pass can blunt terror.
Some folks even learn lucid dream-style strategies, using the paralysis as a launching pad for an out-of-body or lucid experience, flipping the script from victim to explorer.
Seek medical help if episodes are frequent, accompanied by excessive daytime sleepiness or features like cataplexy, sudden loss of muscle tone triggered by emotion, which can signal narcolepsy.
Sleep paralysis is a stark, visceral example of what the source material calls state boundary failures, when the brain's internal state machine partly overlaps wake, NREM, REM.
It's a beautiful reminder that what feels supernatural often has perfectly natural explanations rooted in brain dynamics, and educating people can be profoundly reassuring.
All right. Last act, the all-nighter. What happens when you skip an entire night of sleep? Raphael, tell me the trajectory.
Sure. An all-nighter means roughly 24 hours awake. Much of modern harm comes from chronic partial sleep loss, but an all-nighter is a vivid demonstration of what sleep loss does.
Subjectively, the first 0 to 16 hours are often manageable, especially if you slept before. But sleep pressure builds. From about 16 to 20 hours, you feel tired. Microlapses happen. Attention fades.
By 20 to 24 hours, cognitive performance drops dramatically. You get zoning out, slower reaction times, emotional lability, irritability, or bizarre giddiness, and microsleeps become common. Driving is dangerous.
Researchers often equate hours awake to blood alcohol concentration. Around 17-19 hours awake impairs you similar to a 0.05% BAC. 24 hours awake approaches 0.10% BAC, above legal driving limits.
So, pulling an all-nighter and driving home is dangerously similar to driving drunk, but socially normalized in many circles.
Cognitive specifics, attention and vigilance suffer first and most. Tasks like the psychomotor vigilance task show more lapses and slower, more variable reaction times after sleep loss.
Working memory and executive function take hits too. The prefrontal cortex is sensitive. Planning, inhibition, complex decision-making all degrade. That's why an all-nighter wrecks your ability to follow multi-step tasks.
And learning, cramming, and skipping sleep is a trap. Without sleep, you block consolidation into long-term memory. The next day, recall and new learning are impaired.
Emotionally, sleep loss increases amygdala reactivity and weakens medial prefrontal regulation. People become more reactive to negative stimuli, more impulsive, and sometimes more risk-taking.
There's fascinating neuroscience under the hood. Prefrontal hypoactivity, unstable wakefulness with microsleeps, and local sleep, where parts of the cortex show slow waves while you're technically awake.
Recent studies show that when exhausted, you can zone out, and the brain exhibits slow waves and large CSF pulses similar to early NREV sleep. So parts of the brain are literally slipping into sleep while you're awake.
That explains lapses in attention and odd experiences like temporary confusion or blanking. Biochemically, adenosine builds up, increasing sleep pressure. Stress hormones like cortisol can spike, and dopamine systems shift, affecting motivation.
And don't forget the glymphatic angle. When you skip sleep, you skip the wash. MRI tracer data show reduced clearance after sleep deprivation, with lingering tracer in limbic regions even after recovery nights.
So an all-nighter is more than feeling groggy. You're skipping memory consolidation, emotional recalibration, and toxin clearance. It's a multi-system maintenance failure.
The day after, you often fall asleep fast and show a slow wave rebound. But a single recovery night may not fully restore emotional stability, cognitive performance, or glymphatic markers.
Chronic partial sleep restriction is even worse. People adapt subjectively. They feel better, but objective performance keeps declining. That hidden deficit accumulates.
And chronic poor sleep correlates with higher amyloid beta and tau and may increase dementia risk decades later. The evidence is mounting that regular restorative sleep is neuroprotective.
So, practical takeaways: keep a regular sleep schedule to stabilize REM and REM cycling and support glymphatic function. Treat all-nighters as rare emergencies and prioritize getting consistent 7 to 9 hours when possible.
For people who must do shift work, try strategic napping, consistent circadian cues, and careful sleep hygiene. For those with frequent sleep paralysis, focus on regular sleep, stress reduction, and medical evaluation if needed.
Before we wrap, let's weave together a couple of thematic threads: body-brain mismatches, what feels supernatural but is neurological, and the house metaphor for nightly maintenance.
Body-brain mismatches, sleep paralysis, brain awake, body paralyzed, all-nighter, body awake but local brain areas falling asleep, dreaming, mind vivid, body immobilized by REM atonia. The same coordination problems, different flavors.
What feels supernatural but is neurological? Many intense experiences, demons, abductions, prophetic dreams, can be traced to sleep state mechanics plus cultural narratives. That doesn't diminish their intensity, but it does demystify them.
And the house metaphor,
Memory shelves are being rearranged, dreams and replay, emotional rooms aired out, emotional regulation, and the plumbing flushed, glymphatic clearance.
Maya, quick question. Do you think we'll ever be able to measure how restorative someone's sleep really is with biomarkers, like CSF pulses or pupil changes?
I think so. The 2025 reviews and recent studies point to coordinated slow waves, CSF pulsations, and pupil dynamics as measurable signals. The challenge is scaling these measures into reliable, non-invasive, clinically practical markers.
Yeah. Imagine a future where your sleep app isn't just showing time asleep, but real indicators of glymphatic flow and memory consolidation quality.
That would be powerful, but we should be cautious. Measurement methods are still maturing, and we don't want premature commercial overreach based on incomplete science.
Totally. Caution, but hopeful. Before we sign off, Raphael, any clinical anecdotes you can share that won't reveal patient identities but show the human side?
Sure, short one. I had a young resident come in terrified, convinced they were visited by a demon one morning. They'd been doing 72-hour shifts, slept on the back in short hospital naps, and had repeated episodes. Once we explained the REM-atonia mismatch and stabilized sleep, the episodes dropped to 0.
That's powerful. Education as treatment. I'll add a personal anecdote. I once tried to sleep on a problem, a tricky data analysis, and woke with a weird visual metaphor that led me to reorganize the code. It wasn't magic. It was the brain making remote associations during sleep.
Nice. Tiny pieces of evidence for the creativity link.
Okay, time for rapid practical tips. Quick, we'll call them night shift rules.
Rule 1. Keep a consistent sleep schedule. Your REM and NREM cycles are timing dependent.
Rule 2. Treat all-nighters like emergencies. Avoid driving and safety-critical tasks afterward.
Rule 3. For sleep paralysis, stabilize sleep. Try side sleeping and use grounding reminders in the moment.
Rule 4. Value naps strategically. Short naps can reduce sleep pressure, but don't replace consolidated night sleep for glymphatic and memory work.
Rule 5. If you have frequent, disruptive sleep symptoms, seek an evaluation. Conditions like narcolepsy require specific interventions.
One last reflective note. Sleep is weird and sometimes a little scary. But learning the biology, how your brain cycles, replays, and rinses itself, turns that eeriness into awe and empowerment.
I like that. Awe and empowerment. You can be humbled by sleep's strangeness and also take steps to protect it.
Before we go, any final spooky, comforting thought, Raphael?
Spooky? Parts of your brain literally go offline while you're awake if you're exhausted. Comforting? Those same parts are doing nightly maintenance most nights, and good sleep helps protect cognitive and emotional health long term.
Perfect. Thank you for joining us on this nighttime tour of the brain. If you've ever had a sleep paralysis episode or pulled an all-nighter and wondered what's really happening, we hope this episode made the weirdness feel a little less lonely.
And if you're curious, the source studies we discussed, glymphatic work by Nadergaard, tracer MRI studies on clearance after deprivation, and reviews on sleep's cognitive effects are a great place to read more.
We'll put links in the episode notes. Any closing words, Raphael?
Sleep is not optional maintenance. It's a nightly, multi-level repair and editing process. Treat it like you would your most important tools.
Amen. That's it for Night Shift Neurons. I'm Dr. Maya Ellison.
And I'm Dr. Rafael Cortez. Sleep well, and if you can't, at least know your brain is doing its best in the dark.